Before I start my mini sermon, I kind of want to start with my favorite quote that really I think embodies the message of today. Our deepest fear is not that we are inadequate. Our deepest fear is that we are powerful beyond measure. It is our light, not our darkness, that most frightens us. We ask ourselves, who am I to be brilliant, gorgeous, talented, and fabulous? Actually, who are you not to be? Ephesians chapter 6, verse 19 through 20 echoes that same challenge to us. Pray also for me, that whenever I speak, words may be given to me, so that I will fearlessly make known the mystery of the gospel, for which I am an ambassador in chains. Pray that I may declare it fearlessly, as I should. I'm going to take a moment to stop there and just ask a question. Who are you not to be? Who are you to have a spirit of timidness when God made you a conqueror? Who are you to shrink in the shadows when God made you to walk upright in the light? We sing in church, if God be for us, who can be against us? And we always talk about putting on the armor of God wherever we go, but why is that still not enough? Why do we not let it ring from the mountaintops? Why are we quiet when we should be the loudest? But more important than the question, who are you not to be, is the question, who are you? Or better yet, who does God want you to be? Many times we claim we're this and that, but our walk, our lack thereof, with Christ shows someone completely different. Who you are really resonates with this scripture, and I think it gives 4 distinct items or attributes, characteristics, whatever you like to call them, that God wants every Christian to have or behave in the manner of. And so I'm gonna give those to you real shortly. The first is to pray. It was the first word in this verse that Paul gave. Pray for me. It wasn't send me an army of 10,000 of your strongest men or send me $1 million to bail me out of jail. But in Paul's moment of need, when he needed help the most, he asked for prayer. When all the chips are down and your hands seem as if it's about to fold, if there's anything that you should ask for, it should be prayer. But why is prayer always a last resort instead of a first? Money will run out. Men will fail you, but God will never fail. Why is the thing that we know is guaranteed to work, we go to last? I don't know about you, but if I'm in a dire situation, I want to go to the thing that's going to work on the first try. I don't want to keep going and getting it wrong because I may not have too many chances to get it wrong. So 1 Thessalonians 5:17 tell us we are to pray without ceasing. How do we expect to build a relationship with God if we never talk to Him? Have you ever been in a relationship with somebody that you never talked to them? And if you was, are you single now? Prayer is our most important communication, and it increases our faith in God. Does anybody have that one relative that always shows up to the family reunion, always begging? Like, hey, baby, can I borrow $5? Or, them shoes look nice. Can I borrow them for the club next week? And they always want something. How does that make you feel? Is that your prayer life with God? Don't just pray when you want something or when something goes bad. It should be all the time, day and night. You should be constantly on your knees talking to God because He made this world. So if anybody knows how it works or how to get you through it, it's going to be God. So my second point is ambassador in chains. And I'm going to kind of break it down. I'm going to start with ambassador. What is an ambassador? An ambassador is a high-ranking official / messenger, one who represents or goes on behalf of a nation or state. The position denotes honor, privilege, and trust. You are that ambassador. As that ambassador, you are a representative of God. Everywhere you go, God should reflect in you. So, like, I'm in protocol, and every time I go out to go meet a DV and General Juas is not there, I go out and say, good afternoon, sir and ma'am. On behalf of General Juas, welcome to Osan Air Base. And then my next immediate step is I begin to give them that DV treatment that General Juas would as if he was there. So, as God's ambassadors, we are to do the same. We have a responsibility to go out and love just as God would and to spread the good news of Christ. as ambassadors of God, we're the world's first impression of Christ. And as many of you know, first impressions are always either your first and sometimes all you get. So now let's look at the second part. How many times do we chain ourselves to temporal things that we find valuable? You know, we chain ourselves to the perception of what it means to be beautiful or strong, that you have to be this skinny to be beautiful, you got to be curved this way to be beautiful, or you got to have this many muscles to be strong, or you got to go to the gym this many times to be considered strong, or you got to work this type of job to be successful, you got to have this much money to be wealthy. But what does it mean to be in chains? We often look at chains as a sign of oppression, but they can also be used to create bonds or to anchor precious merchandise. If that's the case, why do we not chain ourselves to Christ? In times of storms or trouble, you want to be anchored to something that will keep you steady. So why not, when the storms of life beat on the sails of our ships, why do we not anchor ourselves to God? Is He not our foundation and our rock? Chaining yourself to temporal things like the man who built his house on sand. So when the storms came, his house washed away. But the man who built his house on the rock was still standing at the end of the day. Fearlessly. And I'm going to kind of give y'all a little story. Just paint the picture a little bit. When I was a senior in high school, I recall my papa, every day he would call me. And he's a little country, so he got a little country swing. So he would call me up and be like, how my future president doing? Because for most of my life, I always talked about how I wanted to be the first biracial female president. But this time, it was different. I was like, nah, I ain't really trying to do that no more. And real quick, he was like, why? And I told him, I said, I don't want to do politics no more because the way things look, you got to sell your soul to win, and there's so much corruption, you can't get anything done. Everything looks like it's in vain. And he looked at me, you know, I can tell he was probably looking at me over the phone, and he said, let me ask you a question. If all the good people just sat back and quit, what would be left of the world? People like you and me. And more importantly, after a while, how will you be able to tell us apart from them? You don't quit because things get tough. You just try harder. I didn't know it then, but my grandfather was giving me my first lesson in how to act fearlessly. But what does it mean to be fearless? Because to me, I thought it meant going bungee jumping, climbing to the highest mountaintop, or being on the front line of war because that's where the brave men and women are. No, it has a greater meaning than that. It means no matter the cost. Doing what is right when it will cost you everything. Things that you worked years to achieve and stand to lose in seconds. When doing God's will may cost you your freedom and your health. Some of you may say that I'm too pretty for prison stripes, but what if God says no, you're not? When witnessing the gospel of Christ may cost you your respect, your dignity, and your pride. When people laugh at you when you come into the room and they call you everything but a child of God. And you can't fight them because you're mad, because you're a Christian, remember? We don't do that. When the cost may mean pain, possibly a lifetime of it, when it means losing someone you love, like your best friend, your husband, or your newborn child. Doing something fearlessly means doing something when it's not convenient, when times are hard and the burden seems unbearable, when you are asked to give more when you have nothing left to give. Is that a cost you're willing to pay? A lot of times we say, yes, Lord, I'll do whatever it takes, but we're sitting in a position of comfort. What happens? Can you say the same when that position becomes uncomfortable or when that seat becomes hot? Because that's what God asks us. It's what He requires in our obedience. The last thing is, as I should. Let's look at that last part of that verse real closely, because I want to clarify. It should does not mean no, maybe, possibly, or could. It's not a request, a begging, or a favor. It denotes an obligation, a duty, and more importantly, an expectation and a purpose. You should be aligned with God's will, not vice versa. It should be according to God's understanding, not your understanding, because a lot of times we're trying to bring God's understanding here. Like, I don't think my God would do that. I don't think my God would have me starving. I don't think my God would have me homeless. I don't think my God would have me in this situation. But God is infinite and you are finite. So how are you going to take infinite and put it under finite? That's not the way God works. God told us the Great Commission that we are to go out and make disciples of all nations, as I should. That is your duty. That is your obligation. So when you are given an order in the military, you are expected to follow it and carry it out. Because if you don't, what happens? So why is it any different with God? He expects your obedience. But with that expectation, there should be a desire. You should want to proclaim the gospel fearlessly. This should not be forced upon you. It should be taken freely and sought without any reservation. It should be considered a privilege and an honor to do so. But what does all this mean? How does this tie into who you are? See, I think that's the beauty of Ephesians 6:19 through 20. I think I got the best verse in here because it sums up everything. I'm going to walk with this one because my page didn't print out, so I'm going off the top of my head. But I really need y'all to home it. It sums up everything because you got this armor now. Yeah. So what? What you going to do with it? Right. God has given you all this great honor, this armor, but my question is, how many of y'all armor is still new? How many of you with your new armor, you done had it for years? How many of y'all sitting there, you ain't even got a scratch on it? Because with that armor, everything has a purpose, everything has a use, and that armor is meant to go into battle. Right. All right? How terrible would it be to go before God on Judgment Day, and your armor still got tags on it? He's looking at you like I gave you just years ago. Why is it still new? See, Ephesians 19:20 gives you instructions on how to use that armor. All right? That's why I got the best verse in here. It tells you what you're supposed to do with it. He says you got to pray because you got to prepare when you go into battle. All right? You can't go into battle unprepared. You don't go to, when you deploy, you got to do CBTs, you got to do training. And the great thing about prayer is that you get to talk to the commander-in-chief and get the instructions from him. All right? That's the great thing about it. So, you know, you get your prayer and you get prepared because that prayer strengthens you to go out to battle and face everything. It's like that pre-deployment prep talk, like, hey, this is what you're going to face, but I know you can do it. All right? Okay? So you don't go, because you know if you go to battle unprepared, when you're unprepared, it equals poor performance, and that's the Simpsons version, okay? So don't go into battle unprepared. So next you got fearlessly. This is God telling you how you should use that armor, because you got the armor of God. You shouldn't fear nothing. You shouldn't, that armor takes away all your weakness. You should be able to go into battle fearlessly, because you're stepping out on faith. You're saying yes. And you're stepping out courageously and boldly, because once you got that armor on, can't nothing touch you. So you should be out there like Call of Duty just slaying. You should be going at it. Right? Because with that armor, you are commanding God's army. You should be out there slaying left and right, because Chicken Little has never went down in any history books. So don't go out there with a spirit of fear. All right, and I need y'all to stay with me on this last part, because he said ambassador in chains, ambassador, because by putting on the armor of God, he's already made you victorious. You go to battle, you've already won. So he's already done the work for you. You can just step out. So now he's calling you to be a diplomat of peace. You are spreading the good news, the Prince of Peace. You are spreading protocol and bringing peace to the nation. That is what he's calling us to be. That's what he's telling you to do with that armor. He's like, my armor is versatile. I need you to switch it up. You go from being a warrior, you go to being a diplomat. You go up and you switch it up on him. Like, hey, I bring you good tidings. I bring you good news. I bring you salvation. Right. And then, as I should, because as I should means a lifetime of commitment. It's not like your regular military, you do 20 years and get out. No, you give him every day. Because the benefits never stop. There is no budget cuts. All right? It's ever flowing. And so I'm saying all this to let you know that who are you? You're a warrior, a conqueror, a diplomat. But most of all, you are a servant of God. And it is time for you to step up to your name's sake. Never forget who you are, because never put yourself down here when he's put you up here. And that's our